John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hi, my name is John Ulzheimer, and I'm a consumer credit expert. And today I'm going to be discussing addresses that appear on your credit reports. We're going to talk about how they get there, why they're important, why you have so many on your credit report, how you can get rid of them if they are incorrect, and what is the relevance of the addresses as it pertains to the other data on your credit reports. So your address is in a section of your credit report that can be most appropriately labeled as the personally identifiable information, or the PII. That's an industry term, PII, personally identifiable information. In English, what it means is it's your personal information. It's the information that's used to identify you and distinguish you from somebody else. And so the PII is going to include things like your name, your address, your date of birth, your social security number, former addresses. These are things that are associated exclusively with you, and so that helps other parties, including the credit reporting agencies, to identify who you are and to associate information with the appropriate consumer when on a credit report. So we have to talk about matching logic for a minute. If we're going to talk about addresses, then we need to discuss matching logic. A lot of people use the terms credit report and credit file interchangeably as if they're the same thing. They're not. A credit report is essentially the end product that is provided to lenders, and those are the reports that are used to determine whether or not to give you loans and to set terms such as interest rates, things like that. A credit file is actually, if you can think of a gigantic pool, and all of the information about your lender relationships are in that pool, that's called the credit file. And all the credit reporting agencies have a credit file database that has literally billions and billions of account level information floating around in that pool, if you will. And whenever you go apply for credit, the credit reporting agencies have to actually create your credit report from the information that is floating around in that credit file pool. So essentially, when you apply for credit, the credit reporting agencies will go into the file and will fish out all the information that they reasonably believe belongs to you or is otherwise associated with you. And they do this using matching logic, meaning what information off of your application is also associated with information that is floating around in their credit file pool, if you will. And so if enough of these PII and other types of information matches, then they're going to reasonably believe that the information is yours, and they're going to place that information from the credit file onto the credit report, and they're going to score that information, all the account level information, and then they're going to send that information to whoever the user is, the bank or the credit card issuer or the credit union that is purchasing your credit report for usage in some sort of an underwriting process. And so that's how information makes it from a credit file onto a credit report. Obviously, if you live at a certain address and have lived at other addresses, that information is going to show up on credit reports either as a current address or former address, second former, third former. So depending on the credit report format, you may have one address on the report, or you may have several addresses depending on how often you move and when the last time you moved. Or frankly, how nomadic you are. Do you move often? If you do, then you're probably going to have several of those former addresses on your credit reports. Can they be removed? Of course they can be removed. If they're incorrect, you can absolutely file a dispute with the credit reporting companies and have addresses removed. You also may be able to have valid former addresses removed simply by filing disputes with the credit reporting agencies. So if you see a credit report that has several addresses, some that are very, very old that you haven't lived at for many, many years, then you may choose to do some housekeeping and try to get some of those old former addresses removed. The dispute process is fairly straightforward. You contact the credit reporting agencies. This is a free process. You don't have to pay someone to do this, and you can essentially ask them to remove the former addresses if you believe that they are so outdated that they're actually not helpful any longer. The reason this pops up is because sometimes when you're added to someone's credit card account as an authorized user, the primary account holder's address, which may not be your address, may end up on your credit report, because that address is now associated with an account that is also associated with you. And so to the extent that that does show up on your credit report, it may suggest that you live somewhere or have lived somewhere where you have not lived, and it may cause you issues if other lenders ask you to verify things like former addresses or zip codes or street numbers as part of some sort of authentication process, which can happen. And if you don't know what the answers are to those questions, then you may fail various authentication processes, and either you may not be able to get copies of your credit reports, or to the extent that you've got a fraud alert on your credit report and the lender is asking you a variety of authentication questions and you're not able to answer them correctly because you don't know what that address is and you don't have the zip code committed to memory, then you may actually fail the authentication process, and valid applications for credit may be delayed or outright denied because the lender can't confirm or isn't comfortable with the answers that you're giving through the authentication process. I don't necessarily agree that this is a valid school of thought, but there are some people who, from the credit repair side of the credit industry, who believe that if you are able to get former addresses removed from your credit report, that you would also be able to get derogatory entries removed from your credit report, because they think that somehow those derogatory entries are anchored to your credit report through the address. I can tell you, in 29 plus years in this industry, I have seen zero evidence that suggests that that's true. You may be able to get a negative item removed from your credit report after you've gotten an address removed, and you may assume that the two had something to do with each other. But again, in my experience, and I used to manage this process when I was working for a credit bureau, and I know that there was no attention given to any former addresses when information was validated through the dispute resolution process. And so there's more evidence that suggests that that's not true than suggests that that is true. But nonetheless, there's a lot of innuendo and suggestive, articles and text and whatnot that makes people believe that there are addresses that somehow anchor negative information to a credit report. So take that for what it's worth. Be very careful with who you believe on that particular issue. But nonetheless, if you feel like addresses on your credit report are problematic because they're either wrong or they're grossly outdated, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you asking that they be removed going through the normal dispute resolution process. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and add them down in the comment section below, and I'd love to get some ideas from you down there as well. And so if you'd like me to cover a specific topic, then let me know, and I'll do my best to cover it. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a great rest of your day.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.